And welcome to the No Assembly Required podcast, a podcast where we talk about nothing for approximately an hour-ish. And please welcome your trio of hosts, starting with RedRomina, followed by Audrey, I burnt down the West Coast, Ember, and of course, your Dark Lord of the Internet, on this festive evening, your favorite defense against the dark arts teacher, Roberto Blake. Welcome to the No Assembly Required podcast, filmed in front of a live YouTube audience. Please like and subscribe.
Wow, the audacity just increases with every episode.
Well, I went with your Twitter handle, like you did for the Halloween festivities. Change your handle to RedRomina, so I went with it.
I try to be festive on my I feel like if there's any low effort thing that I can do to be festive is change my name on Twitter.
Twitter's the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah. So why not, right? And it's like, I do it for Thanksgiving, I do it for Christmas, I do it for any holiday, even like a random one. If I'm feeling it, why not? This is so easy to do, and it's fun.
Yeah. I'm going to keep holding Audrey responsible for the
burning
West Coast
down
wildfire.
the West Coast.
Yeah. Audrey, the arsonist Ember.
Wow.
Incredible.
Doesn't seem very fair.
You are quickly learning that life is not fair.
Life is unfair.
Dude, I woke up in the middle of the night last night, and it was like really smoky out. And then I checked my phone, and I got a notification from like this app that tells you when crimes happen in the area. And it said, man with matchet is arrested after like hitting someone with it. And I was like, what type of apocalypse is this right now? Just like turn over and go back to bed.
You know, idiocracy is becoming more and more reasonable every day.
Who carries around a matchet is my question. It seems like a very specific choice.
I don't
know. I was actually woken up last night at 3 o'clock in the morning because my building has this problem where for some reason the fire alarm goes off all of the time. And so there's really no way of knowing when there's an actual fire because it'll ring like 3 times a week. And it hasn't for a while, like a month. It's been normal, right? Like it's been here and there. It's been tolerable. But this past week, well, here's the thing. It's like the management, they'll call people to come and like fix it or like, come and do tests or like check it out. But nothing's changed. And it's been this way for the past like 6 months where it's just like multiple times a week, the fire alarm will just go. And last night it was at 3 o'clock in the freaking morning. I went to bed at 1 o'clock. So you can imagine at 3 o'clock, I was like, I don't care, man. The whole building could be on fire. I don't care. I just like rolled over and put the pillow over my head. And I was like, I'm just going to keep sleeping. Whatever, man. Keep sending false alarms. I'm never going to know when there's a real fire.
That's going to be sad when there is a real one.
I'd be like, you better be taking some money off the rent this month, homie.
Yeah, and they don't. They continue to charge. I'm not even go down that road because I'll take over the entire podcast. But what I do is I just call the cops. I just call the cops every single time. Even if the bell just rang, the alarm just rang, I'm just like immediately just call 911. I'm just like, hey, there's like a fire alarm. I don't know. I don't see any smoke or anything, but like, you gotta come. Fire alarm's going off. Like, I don't care. Send the troops in. Send the whole fire department.
Doesn't
knock on the management's door?
Doesn't it like trigger the like fire people anyway?
Yeah, but if I'm calling, but here's the thing, because the thing is that like this morning, so it went off at 3 o'clock last night, and this morning at 9:30, it went off like 4 times in a matter of 10 minutes. So it would just like ring for a couple of seconds and then just turn off. And then like in a few more minutes, it would ring again and then turn off. This is a fire alarm, guys. It's very loud, very loud. And I had a Zoom call this morning. I had a meeting, and I think it rang like 3 times during my meeting.
Oh, that seems like that seems like a good segue, though. That seems like a good segue to tonight's topic, because you had, I assume you had a client meeting.
No, but it was for Create IRL.
Okay.
So kind of relevant. I see where you're going, but I am the queen of segues here.
Okay.
Don't take
We'll segue away.
Segue away. No, I mean, continue. I won't. Audrey, would you like to take over the segue?
I don't know. I was just saying it's your turn.
What do you mean it's my turn? Okay. All right. We literally chose this topic because last week Roberto and I took over the podcast. So we decided that the next episode would be something that Audrey had complete control over.
No. That's not. It was. I should like know sort of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so that you could participate more.
Yes.
Hello.
I will. But that doesn't mean I'm good at segues.
All right. Well, tonight's
Audrey.
topic.
Yes.
All right, continue. Go. Roberto's got
Audrey, like we've reached
Audrey.
an interesting place in the world. We've reached an interesting place in the world where I feel like everyone is playing the comparison game, and everyone is pulling, oh, I have it the hardest. Oh, I have it the hardest. And anybody, especially people right now, and I get it. I'm not lacking in self-awareness, but there's this like, there's what I think is a, I'm not going to be polite. I'm not going to be polite. Screw it. There's this ridiculous idea and this ridiculous notion that if you're a content creator and you get to work from home and you make videos or you stream on Twitch and everything like that, that you have an easy, privileged job and you should shut the hell up and not complain about anything, especially during COVID. And you could be, flipping burgers or working at checkout counter and all that, as if most people who were content creators didn't come from doing that 9-to-5 or menial or remedial or low income job base. And there's this absurdity that just because you have these circumstances and this freedom, that what you do is not hard and you should not complain. And so as somebody who is trying to become a full-time content creator and has been at this for a while, hands out in the creator space, knows that ecosystem, I wanted the three of us to be able to get together and to talk about this. And I know we have some similar but different experiences with this, but Audrey, you're like living this right now, and you kind of went from graduating and even dropping out of school directly into saying you just wanted to start what you feel is your actual career as a content creator. So like, how do you feel about those conversations, or where people come at creators in that way?
I mean, I kind of understand why they do, because, from the outside, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that I think people just don't really know about if they're not in this space directly. Like, there's a huge learning curve, and, a lot of YouTubers kind of put forward this image of it's all fun and games, and they only really show the highlight parts. Like, they're not showing the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes most of the time. So I totally get it from like an outside perspective. They're like, oh, you just play around and like, I mean, it's different for everyone, but like, for example, you just vlog your life and you just have fun with your friends. And I mean, if we want to get into the details, there are definitely some people who have like more work that go into their content, but for the most part, even the people that like, I'm trying to think of an example, like a Logan Paul, like people might see his content and be like, well, he's just this like loud guy making stupid vlogs.
No, there's a lot of work in
the amount of work that goes behind the scenes. Like, not the biggest fan of Logan Paul, but I can appreciate the work ethic like behind what he does.
I've always
'Cause it's
praised the Paul
brilliant.
brothers for their work ethic and their athleticism, despite the other massive character flaws they have.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that. Like, I think it's understandable where that, point of view comes from, but then there's also, if you actually get to know a creator and you ask them questions, you realize that it's not.
But I mean,
just.
but isn't that with like anything? And then why is that like the people wouldn't necessarily say that? And even when I was growing up, people didn't say that actors and actresses had an easy job. They didn't say that TV producers or videographers had an easy job. And I mean, they obviously see that there's a lifestyle and that it looks nice, but they never delegitimized their work. And even and obviously people sometimes complain about the astronomical fabulous sums that athletes get, but they've stopped since complaining about that, considering that college athletes don't get paid and they have to take those kind of risk up front to be able to go to the big show. But then also they look at the injuries and the lifespans of their career, and they've said, okay, that's a fair trade-off, considering that you might have like a life-crippling, threatening injury or something that diminishes your quality of life as a football player or a boxer, that for the short lifespan and quality of life that might go along with that you get compensated that much in proportion to your risk. And when you think about, I understand what people are saying too, but my thing is that people are making this comparison and projecting from their place of pain in ignorance of what someone's actual job is. And the reality is you can't implant anybody working a full-time job that isn't a content creator or isn't in that world into being a content creator for 30 days and they be successful. Whereas you can transplant a content creator into any low-income job, or even some of the not low-income jobs that aren't specialized, that are not specialized, where you get on-the-job training and you know how to do that job in a week, probably as well as anyone who's been there for the last 6 months. That will not work if you try to tell someone, become a video editor, become an audio podcast editor, or become the host of a show, or become a researcher, or become someone who's an instructor doing tutorials. You can't tell somebody, okay, do this and do this as well as a content creator who does it full time or has been doing it full time for a year or 2 or 3 years, and have them produce similar or comparable results or outcome. It's not even close because it's too specialized. And I think there's a lack of respect. And I also think that if someone's going to say that, well, that's because people don't know any better, when has ignorance of something been an excuse?
Ooh. It's kind of true. But okay, I think one thing with like the image of creators and why it's like that, it's because most of the time the more popular, like, mainstream media creators, or even with the younger kids, like the ones that they watch, I don't know, I feel like they kind of idealize their lifestyle because it seems a lot of fun, and well, it is fun, but you know what I mean? Like, they see the fun parts only on the screen, basically.
It looks fun to be Jeff Bezos, too. I'm sure it's not.
I mean, I don't know if it sounds fun to be Jeff Bezos. I'd much rather be, like, a vlogger than... Maybe that's just me, but, like, as a kid, I would much rather be a vlogger than Jeff Bezos, because I don't know what Jeff Bezos does. Like, I don't want to be running around with my friends.
He works out.
That's great.
Facts.
So I think part of what comes from that is also like creators kind of seem like the low budget version of traditional media, I guess. So it's because that's also another factor. Like, this is a completely different point. Like, you're always compared to, or at least before it felt like even the people who try and cross over, like the David Dobrik's, Liza Koshis who try to go to mainstream. They're always like, is the YouTuber going to be able to do it just as well as like someone in traditional media?
If you were going to get, let me ask both of you this question. If you could make $250,000 being a Twitch streamer or working like at a like retail job or food service job, you're getting the same amount of money. And in this case, let's say it's $250,000 for whatever reason, just because let's say the world just became absurd or you got a magical genie and you could be on Twitch, but you had to work on Twitch 8 hours a day, streaming, having trolls, getting internet criticism. You could be a famous Twitch streamer and make $250,000, or you could have anonymity and you could, you know, work as a bartender or you know, work at a bookstore and have anonymity and nobody judging you, and also make $250,000 8 hours a day by a year, $250,000 a year working 8 hours a day. Which one do you do? Do you do the work of being a Twitch streamer, or do you like work at a bookstore or a bar?
Romina, do you want to answer?
I'd probably work at a bookstore. I mean, because it's an easier job.
Dude, I want to be a Twitch streamer. It sounds way more
But
fun.
okay, no. Well, here's the thing.
But it also sounds a lot more difficult.
It sounds more fun.
It sounds more fun, but I feel like
Right.
it'd be worth it because it's like
Wait,
more.
would you? So you'd be a Twitch streamer and you'd put up with the crap Pokimane puts up with right now?
Dude, I just like the internet stuff. I would go crazy working at a bookstore.
I think it
Like,
depends on
the other
if I'm
options-
fulfilled doing other things, because that's really what it comes down to. Because it's not really so much about the money as much as doing something that's fulfilling that I enjoy doing. And I mean, obviously, like putting price stickers on canned vegetables at a grocery store is not something that I dream about doing. But if I'm already doing something that's fulfilling to me or that I enjoy, aside from the job, then maybe I would be doing that. I mean, it would really depend on.
I mean, if you work at the bookstore, you can mentally check out and clock out when you're done. If you're a creator, or a
Right,
streamer,
and that's the thing,
all of us
right.
know it's never over. Just because you
It
streamed
never
for 8
ends,
hours,
right?
or you did that, your brain is constantly on the next video. Everything in your lifestyle is about the next thing and the next video. Even in your relationships, you have to wonder if people around you are using you for access or clout or are genuine. Whereas in any other situation, that's not the case. You're like, you know, you're just a person.
Right.
I totally get that, but I don't know. For me personally, I just think it'd be more fulfilling to do Twitch, so it'd be worth dealing with all that.
Which is why people actually do it. I bring this up because there was actually a news article about a streamer in the gaming community in Twitch. I think his name is Leffen or something. I think I tweeted it, not tweeted. I think I sent it to you guys in our DM group. And he had the hot take of specifically and saying that as much as he loves what he does, he also hates aspects of it. And if he could literally go back to flipping burgers but make the same amount of money, he would do it. And everyone canceled him and kind of made him apologize and say it was a hard take because of COVID and people like having, you know, hard jobs or digging ditches and all this stuff and everything like that. But they took his tweet out of context. He said if he could make the same amount of money, not, oh, he would go back to making like $6 an hour. He said if he could make the same amount of money, but go work at like Burger King, which is where I think he said he used to work, he would do it because he's saying it's less work to just do what you are told and to show up and to punch a clock than to be a content creator, an entrepreneur, a public figure. And I don't think that that is a hot take or a bad point or the worst take of all time, that it's like, because people constantly talk about, well, why don't people live a simple life and this and that, the next and the other? And the difference is the money. The difference is the money. But if people could not, you've heard all this rhetoric about hustle culture and toxic productivity and people and about burnout. And so, and burnout's real. Toxic productivity is real. I think hustle culture is made up, but like, or hyperbolized. I don't think it's a real thing. But my point is, if people are like, oh, you know, you're working yourself to death, you're constantly stressed out, wouldn't it be great to do something less stressful, but not have to lose the money? I think nobody is like, I think there's nobody. How is a controversial hot take, I would rather work less hard for the same amount of money? How is that a controversial hot take instead of, well, duh?
Mm-hmm.
I think what people are disputing is how hard it is to be a content creator. And I'm like, we can teach anybody how to do most jobs that are non-specialized in 2 to 3 days, and they can do it competently. That's why they're not specialized or what's called no skill labor jobs. I would not even begin to call being a content creator a no skill labor job.
Matt B says most are simply in awe of the gains and completely unaware of the work behind the scenes. The same could be said for any entrepreneur.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the creators do it. Well, it's this weird cycle because obviously they're posting highlight reels normally. So
why is the justification though people posting highlight reels? Everyone in real life does that. People are just
ignorant. They don't realize, like, they're just consuming stuff and they don't really think about the why and how it actually.
So are we just going to give everyone a pass who has a bad take about what it is? No, it doesn't
mean they get a pass. It just means people are just.
So I can punch all of them in the mouth.
No. No.
So then you're giving them a pass. Look, Audrey. Roberto just wants to punch somebody in the mouth.
I don't think I've ever not been upfront about that.
But that's why, like, I think it's good for people to talk about it more, because then maybe the stigma will slowly go away. People
are choosing to be ignorant. People like Casey have shown how, like, what a day in their life looks like, and it's like doing that looks insane. There are so many tutorial channels. There are so many behind the scenes channels. There are so many things that show you that it's a production. Even the things where people show and take you behind the scenes of their business, and the 5 or 6 or 20 people behind the brand of an influencer. And it's not just somebody flipping on their phone. It's a team effort.
Well, and it's kind of like a meme almost to, like, say that creators have like an easy job. Like, I feel like it's gotten to the point where people just dismiss it as, like,
if it's so easy, then they should effing do it.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, that's true. But I think it's just kind of, it's literally like a meme now.
Mm-hmm.
People just kind of say that.
The next time somebody says that, the next time they says that, I'm going to tell them, all right, real talk. It's like, become a daily effing content creator then. Like, on top of your 9-to-5 job, because everybody that you're criticizing, unless they blew up when they were in high school, did it on top of their 9-to-5 job until they were successful. You want to say creators an easy job and everything like that? Most people I know on this platform, even the most successful people with millions of subs, made zero money or did it at a loss for 3 to 5 years. What career does anybody do aside from being a musician, an athlete, an artist, a painter, a writer, at a loss or negative net income for 3 to 5 years before they ever see a dime? Being an artist has always been the hardest job there is.
I'd like to hear if anyone in the comments disagrees. But I feel like a lot of them are also creators. So everyone's like,
I think we've got TikTokers, we've got artists.
People are like, I'm not commenting. I don't want to be roasted.
Well, it's not about being roasted. It's about being bodied, but
it's about not getting a pass.
It's better. It's probably better. Wait, we can play Devil's Advocate though.
Okay.
Oh, wait,
wait. What you guys play Devil's Advocate?
I don't like this game.
Wait, I was gonna say something else that's kind of off topic but relevant. So one thing that I've noticed that people who don't really understand what goes on behind the scenes for content creators is asking them how much money they make, and I feel like they're justified to know. Just out of nowhere. Does that not happen to you guys?
I mean,
like, how much you
I put it out there.
Well,
I don't put the exact number,
so.
But I don't put the exact number. People have to do a little bit of mental gymnastics, and they would still get the number wrong. They'd either shoot too high or shoot too low.
I think it is multiple. But people still ask you anyway, though. I mean, if they haven't seen your content. Let's just say I'm not in the 1%
just yet. Let's say I'm not in the 1% just yet.
But do you ever feel like you have to justify? Because you do it for a different reason, because you're, like, teaching people about what it's like. But, like, I've had instances where people
I've had to justify it to family.
Like, how much you make on this brand deal? I'm like, I didn't ask you what your salary is. Like, why are you ask?
I do ask people now, but I'm challenging some boundaries, especially with like people of color, with talking about money, and you know that I'm moving to a conversation about what does frugality look like in a 21st century economy? What is the creator economy? You know, I'm having those conversations, so it's slightly different, but like from just a human side, I have had to defend what I do and whether it's sustainable. I've had family, not my immediate family, my extended family. I've had people try and challenge me on it, and then I like just flat out say and everything like that, here's how much money I make, and like, yeah, I make more money than almost everybody else in the family, like, period. Like oh, this corporate job, this corporate salary you make and everything like that, where they can fire you, no one can fire me, and I make more money than you. Like, and sometimes I've had to be condescending or arrogant about it, because again, I'm challenging someone 10 or 20 years older than me that is convinced that they know better than me, but I've surpassed them at a younger age or where they were at my age. And I also am very nuanced in the fact that I like really am invested in my career. It's not a means to an end for me. I actually care about what I do. Like, you know, I mean that. Versus a lot of people, they make their career choices are a means to an end. They are making a living. I am building a lifestyle. I have architected the way that my existence goes. I've made those choices, and I've taken and assumed all the risk in that venture. And so that means I do know better than you, even if I'm younger than you, because of the fact that independence forces evolution in that way. Someone who has to make all the choices, I'm more of a contemporary of that person's employer than I am of them, if that makes sense. So it's that level of difference, because I'm like, I'm not a parallel to you, because you are at the behest and you serve at the pleasure of your company and your employer. I am an employer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, to your point, I've had to defend how much money I make to elders in my family or in friends groups and so on and so forth, of like, this is legitimate. I've been doing it for a very long time. Here's how much money I make. Here's how I make it. Here's why I make it. What if the internet goes away? If the internet goes away, the world is collapsed, and I'm still going to be on top, because I'll just become a bloody warlord. So,
wow.
like, I'll just use my charisma card. I'll just pull my charisma card and like, all right, I am now going to just, like, you know, build a cult following and rule my region and my fiefdom, and you know, like in what was it, The Walking Dead, I'll just be the governor. Like, you know, it's like, I'll just be the governor. So that's, I mean, but if the internet goes away, everything is done. The internet is tied too much to the infrastructure of everything.
The internet go away. Like,
people still make that argument.
Like, I've also heard, like, what if YouTube disappeared? I'm like, well, that would only happen if Google disappears, basically.
And good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen, because like people are making the comparison to TikTok potentially being banned, and I was like, it's not the same at all, because YouTube is literally with Google. So
Google can buy our government whenever they want. Unlike TikTok, they got that kind of loot. I mean, it's $1 trillion company. The U.S. economy is only $20 trillion a year. Between all of these tech companies, like, they're the majority of our, like, there's like 6
All right,
companies
I have an argument for that.
that are like 30% of our entire economy. 6 companies are 30% of our entire economy. That's scary.
What if okay, YouTube doesn't go away literally, but what if the ability to upload to YouTube goes away, and they become a more exclusive platform, like an invite only type thing, where it's streaming? I'm just saying.
Well, you already know my business model, Romina, so you know I'm fine. You already know my business model, Romina, so I'm fine.
No, but people, like, the thing that makes people watch YouTube is the creators. If you take off the creators, then it's gonna.
Okay, I'm not saying they take off the creators. I'm just saying the ability for anybody to upload.
Nah, I think it'll get really stale really fast, because then they'll, like, be gatekeeping.
It'll be curated.
Networked out for Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Crunchyroll, every other streaming service making a bank.
Well, then that's like a completely different.
They'll never do that. I'm just
Business.
saying that in this far-fetched scenario that people have, there will
It's making
still,
them too much money.
yeah.
I don't think they do
Well, actually, that's not true because only the top tier creators are making them any money. Because the most content creators do not generate enough income via the platform through ad revenue to justify the hosting and bandwidth for their content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
YouTube's just being generous.
No. Yeah, I mean, because then where would all these creators go? If YouTube is gone. Or gatekeeps.
When people get kicked off of YouTube is they go to other platforms. Because I mean, think about it. There are people who get banned from YouTube. They try and make a home in another platform. There are also new creator first initiatives. I'm really super interested in what Jesse Ridgway has been doing with you guys might know him as McJuggernuggets, one of the OG YouTubers, one of the longest serialized YouTubers running on the platform. He created his own thing, Storyfire, and it's gaining some traction. It's a creator-first initiative-driven platform. Edgy content has a home there, but that also has some consequences. I believe in what creator-first platforms are trying to do, but the problem becomes for creators, by creator companies are also tied to the reputation of the creators who build them. But also, if those creators themselves are creators first, also, the platform that they built isn't their priority. Their own brand is. Their own content is. Because they're not tech moguls. They're not tech CEOs. They're entertainers by nature. It's entertainers that got frustrated with the limitations of a platform, and then they try to build their own, whether it's Triller or Storyfire. But the problem with that is they were successful on YouTube or TikTok because they put YouTube or TikTok first. They can't have that same scale of success without putting their new platform first. And they won't do that because a lot of them are young and they still want clout and fame. Because if they wanted to be a tech CEO, they would be a tech CEO.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of like Ashton Kutcher getting into the tech space. And isn't it kind of like the same?
Yes and no, because he doesn't have to make content in a sustainable way to be relevant. He doesn't have to sit there and upload every week or people forget about him. And also, he has the infrastructure and the network that comes from traditional media, and that's leverage. And then I would assume that he has a higher overall net worth than the average successful content creator even has, because the problem with being a content creator at the highest levels that we're talking about, which is where I guess most of the criticism of being a creator is but like the majority of people who are full-time creators are not uber wealthy. They're not the James Charleses and the Jeffree Stars and the Paul brothers flexing these lifestyles. Even the successful YouTubers and Twitch streamers that make six figures, people think that that's more money than it is. There was the conversation about, $400,000 a year is wealthy. It's like, maybe it would be if that was a salary you got from a company, but it's not if you run your own business because you have employees, because there's almost no way to make $400,000 without having people work for you, because it's not sustainable. If you do that and you don't have people work for you as an entrepreneur and you make that kind of money, you're going to have a heart attack and die at like 30. There's no realistic, sustainable way to work by yourself, keep all the money, and make $400,000 a year. It almost never happens. It's ridiculously rare. And the people who do it are not living healthy lifestyles or have anything resembling work-life balance. So first of all, that's a thing. And almost nobody does it. You're at that point, 400,000 is the beginning of the bottom of the 1% in America, but you have to then think about the number of people who would be able to do that without massive expenses invested and risk to make that money in the first place would be the rarest of the rare at that point. So there's nobody who makes $400,000 without spending like $100,000 up front. So there's that part of it. And then on top of that, you are going to pay hefty taxes at 400,000 anyway. So even if it was like, say, 20% of gross, well, that's 100,000 of taxes, 100,000 of expenses. So now you're really just down to 200,000. Someone would say, oh, well, that's still a lot. Well, it depends on where you are. And someone would say, well, then you shouldn't be in that expensive place. But could you make that money if you weren't there? And would you be able to hire the talent you need to make that money if you weren't in a place that supports that talent pool? So it's a double-edged sword. Then, is part of the spending of your lifestyle required in order to create the thing that you have, in addition to the just general business expenses, employees, and overhead? The lifestyle might be a sunk cost as well. So you might be making that money, you're not keeping that money, because you're not living off of $400,000 if you're an entrepreneur. And that's the thing that no one understands. They don't understand the concept of margins, sunk cost, and they don't understand the concept of taxes. And yes, you write off your business expenses, but that doesn't mean anything, because you still had to have the money to do that stuff up front, and all you're doing is being taxed less. All you're doing is being taxed less. That's it. And when we talk about 20% taxes, we're talking about federal. So you're got state on top of that. And if you're a high level state, you might have state taxes and you might have municipal taxes. And then there's a nuance to how much money people make, especially when you become a creator, because there's when you're an employee and you think about, well, how much do I make? You might be taxes, and you might not have like, well, after earnings I have this, but it's still a much larger percentage of your money that you might be keeping than someone who runs a business of their own. And if you're a content creator, make no mistake, you run a business of your own. So there's maintenance cost to the work you do. If you're an employee, unless you have a very high profile job, there's almost no maintenance cost to what you do. When you're a content creator, you lose money up front and you pay to work. And there's also no guaranteed income.
Yes, was that a reference to Philip DeFranco's show?
Well, not just him. That's been a conversation that comes up almost every year of the last 3 years, but it was Philip DeFranco was talking about it. Hank Green was talking about it. I have mad respect for both these guys, but I disagree with their entire take on this, and I feel they should know better. I feel for them, there's a lot of internalized guilt about their quote unquote privilege, but I think that they know better. I don't think they're virtue signaling, but I do think they're internalizing the guilt and the gap. Like with Phil, he came from nothing, so he's thinking back to how he used to feel about people who make the amount of money that he makes, and is probably not reconciling that. But I think you should just kind of let that go. With Hank came from a family where he didn't grow up wealthy, but he grew up never worrying about or fretting over money, and he never came from a position of not having enough. So I think he internalizes a lot of that, and that's where a lot of his philosophy about capitalism. He likes making money, but he also has this weird guilt about it too, in some ways, which I've noticed, which I want to talk to him about in like a podcast. But but I love Hank, and I love the way that he's built really good companies, and that he tries to do right by everyone who works under him. But I also think that their relationships with money ignores the reality of mid-tier people, because make no mistake, both of them make well in excess of 400,000. They make millions. Make no mistake, they make millions. So their view of $400,000 is still wildly disconnected from the reality of that, even then, because they're talking about people being privileged and disconnected, but they themselves are also disconnected from the reality of what 400,000 does and doesn't do for a lot of people. And I think that another thing that no one's really accounted for is the consideration of lifestyle choices in a career, whether it's regarding to money you make or the career that you choose. If you choose a career in finance, there's a lifestyle. If you choose a career in healthcare services, there's a lifestyle. If you choose a career in a trade like electrician or plumber, there's a lifestyle. If you choose a career in content creation, there's a lifestyle. Does that make sense when I say it, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think also there's the another thing that people seem to be confused about is I mean, obviously Phil is incorporated and he has his business, and he employs people under this business, and what his business, even though it's his brand and it's him, or part of his business, one of his businesses, that those are separate entities, and I think there's such a financial illiteracy when it comes to what it actually means for a business to make X amount of dollars, or what it means for the CEO to make X amount of dollars. Because when they see these numbers, they're seeing the business and they're thinking the person behind the business is making this money, which is usually not the case, even when you're working for yourself. So
No, that's
more
fair.
often than not, it's a lot less than what the number is. Like, so you could say it's 400K, and that's what the business makes, but it's possible that the person who's behind the helm is only making 50K, right?
Well,
Just as
like
an
with
example.
Gary, when all these journalists try to clickbait Gary V with these takes on hustle culture and privilege, when his family was an immigrant family that came here from nothing because we tried to help oppressed Jewish people in Russia during the Cold War immigrate to America and to liberate them, and we had to trade wheat and produce in order to be able to bring those people over and to free them because they were being persecuted. That's when Gary Vaynerchuk's family came over, and his father ended up owning a liquor store after working as a stock boy. And people cry about how he inherited some $3 million business from daddy. He didn't inherit anything. He worked for his father, and his father owned a $3 million gross revenue liquor store, but it's a liquor store. Go to your local liquor store and ask them about margins. It's retail. If you have a retail business, 90% of your money goes back into inventory. So what you sell in gross, there's margin. So the margin on the spirits and the losses and loss prevention on a liquor store is absurd. So it was like, so they were at a $300,000 a year business. People would say, oh, well, you still made $300,000 a year. It's like, no, the net profits of a liquor store were $300,000 a year, split between Gary, his father, and the employees working the store.
Yeah,
So
and what if you spent 250,000?
Yeah,
that
Gary
means
was
you only made
making
50,000.
Right, Gary was making $35,000 a year, and that's all he paid himself for the longest time. And when he wanted to grow the family business, because people don't understand, that's what immigrant cultures are. They look at Gary V, they see 40-something-year-old white dude, but he's an immigrant.
Right.
There's a difference. There's nuance to immigrant culture. You don't get your family's business until your parents can't run it anymore. And when you're growing the family business, you're doing it for them as a thank you for bringing you to America. That's how it is. And people who aren't immigrants don't get it. So people judge, again, to Audrey's point earlier, they're judging something else they don't know. People judge business without ever running one. If you've never run a business, in my opinion, and I know it sounds pretentious, if you've never run a business, you ain't got no business judging an entrepreneur or CEO outside of, if you want to make character arguments about who they are as a person, that's different. But you ain't got no, aside from if people truly cheat their customers, I don't feel people who haven't run a business, are educated enough to critique or criticize someone who does. Because it's just like we talked about how people criticize content creators and then they've never made content. They don't know how it is. They think they know YouTube. They've never uploaded a video. How are you going to say anything about YouTube? How are you going to, it's ignorance. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. So that's how I feel about it though.
That's just getting into people are mean.
But they feel justified,
is that not
Audrey.
Is that not the whole theme of this conversation though, right?
People are mean.
Yeah, right? Like people who just are speaking out of turn, or people who don't understand. And well, it's not so much that people don't understand, it's the unwillingness to learn the other side of it.
Yeah.
Audrey, you brought up that people just see the highlight reel. Do you know why people only see the highlight reel? Because no one's interested in hearing the complaints of someone they believe has it better than them. And therefore they also feel justified in punching up. They feel but the thing is, it's like, you're still punching. It doesn't matter if you're punching up or stumping down. You're still swinging at somebody you don't have to.
Yeah.
You're still swinging at somebody you don't have to. But people championing it and cheer punching up, and then they criticize punching down, even if there are situations where punching down would be justified because you were punched first.
Yeah, but I feel like specifically with creators, a lot of the time it just comes from a place of not understanding how it works, and it being like a pretty new industry. Just a lot of questions, and sometimes people don't care to find the answers, so they just assume.
Broke Roberto, who worked at the bookstore, does not work harder than Roberto the content creator and Roberto the coach and Roberto the CEO. It's not even close. Broke Roberto, who worked for, the web hosting company, does not outwork Roberto the content creator. It's not even close. Like, there's no way.
How many Robertos are there?
Whatever. Like, I'm multi-incarnate. I'm the doctor. 13 incarnations and counting. But only certain people get that joke. But I mean, it's not even close. It's not the amount of skill that I had to learn to do any aspect of what I do now dwarfs the knowledge that I would have had to do any previous job. The amount of knowledge I needed to do any previous job that I worked at full time is a fraction of the knowledge I have had to be able to do what I'm currently doing, which means that the barrier to entry is significantly harder. The barrier to entry to be a full-time content creator is significantly harder than the barrier to entry to most other things, which is why most people don't do it. Most people don't do it and can't do it, because if you decided tomorrow that you wanted to be an accountant and you have your full mental faculties, you're healthy, and you have the capacity to learn, all you have to do to be an accountant is sit through the courses and the certification and do everything that you're told. You literally can just do what you're told for a set number of years, and you will be an accountant. And you will always be able to pretty much get a job and do a job and have a salary. There is no version of just doing what you're told where you get to be a successful content creator. That you can just do what you're told and you can go into most professions. And that's it. There is no need to be a critical thinker. There is no need to be imaginative, inventive. There is no need to have a diversity of overall skills. It's actually frowned upon. Like, there is no need to actually, even for most jobs today, to be technologically savvy. You cannot be a content creator today and not do those things. Like, you have to have specialized knowledge to be a full-time content creator. You have to have specialized knowledge. You have to also understand other people and the demands of the market. You're at the mercy of the market. You have to be able to market and promote yourself. You don't need to do that to do most jobs.
Yep.
I think the distinction comes in the after hours, right? Because people are like, "Oh, I can sit and be on Twitch for 8 hours. That's fine," but it's what happens after you clock out. Because
but also during,
if you're,
can you do it and be good at it?
Well, here's the thing. Let's just say that's completely like, oh well, whatever. Like, anybody can do it, right? Anybody can play video games, whatever. This is the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're going to Walmart and you're going to go work and you're just pricing items or something, it's such a mechanical thing that once you're done and you clock out, you can literally do anything you want and you don't need to think about work at all until you have to wake up the next morning at 7:30 to go to work.
And when you go to the mall, nobody's going to be like, "Hey, are you so-and-so?" And no one's going to feel entitled to your time. You're probably not going to have stalkers if you work at Walmart. You're not going to have 2,000 people make content about how you look if you work at Walmart.
Or making you feel guilty when you don't work.
Or I made a reference I need a reference that you guys did not understand.
Oh,
Okay, what was it? I
I
didn't hear.
said, unless you're Alex. Oh my goodness. See, look, I can make like internet meme references and you guys don't know that. So Alex
Oh,
from
Target
Target was
Alex?
like a
Alex
huge
from Target?
thing.
Oh,
Alex from Target?
Bro, yeah.
See, I did
said
catch it. It took me a minute. I just had to remember. I had to pull it out of the filing cabinet.
Wow. I almost had him.
Almost. You almost got me.
So close.
You almost got me. You almost got me. Good one, Ember. Good one. You almost
I mean,
got me.
that's a
Exception.
yeah, that's an exception to the
Well, I
rule
mean, he
here.
was
feel
just
like.
minding his business.
Living memes.
Sure.
Living memes are an exception. And besides, not everyone is as ruggedly handsome and dashing as Alex from Target.
That kid was
Right.
like 15 or something. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah,
I
it
wonder
was
what
like
he's
18,
doing
19.
now.
I think it was
wanna
18,
look
19.
up.
But anyway.
What is Alex from Target doing?
Yeah, but I mean, but those people also, the lifespan of their internet fame is very, like the Bagel Boss guy. It's very short lived. It's very, but that's another thing is the lifespan of being a content creator, and content creators know this, is that they know that longevity is rare. There's most other careers that if you go into, you can't say, oh, well, longevity is rare, except for like anything in entertainment. Everything outside of entertainment, for the most part, or sports or athleticism, you can do that career for almost as long as you want.
I think the other thing is the expectation. So, for example, you're talking about the longevity of Alex from Target, or it was Target, right?
He went on tour?
So
He dropped out of high school and went on tour. Dang.
Good for him, taking advantage of those 15
But I don't
minutes.
think he's doing anything anymore. Oh, he started a YouTube channel.
It doesn't matter though. Here's the thing, like even if it lasts like 15 minutes, right? Or even if it lasts forever, there isn't an expectation from him to create content. So now that he has started to create content, there is that expectation. And so there is the anonymity of it is tagged along with the expectation. Whereas if he's just Alex from Target and he keeps doing the Target thing or going to college or does something totally different and is not creating content, people aren't like, why haven't you posted on Instagram? Or, they aren't making him, there's no obligation. He doesn't belong to the masses.
Yeah.
I think the hardest parts of being a creator behind the scenes that people don't see is the not shutting off part, where it's just constantly, you're always thinking about making stuff. And then also there's the public scrutiny side, whether you're big or not, like you're going to get comments or potentially stalkers, like that stuff's scary. And I mean, there's always positives to that, but I'm talking about.
All right.
Yeah,
guys, there's a couple good questions, just because we're kind of getting close to the 1 hour mark here. But there's a couple questions in the chat that I definitely want to hit because I think that they're good. So first of all, from Matt B, any thoughts on new creators needing to have a solid trade skill or backup plan should their creator endeavor fail? So plan B.
I don't think there's a such thing as failure as much as there is lessons. You can perceive it as failure in the sense that you didn't get the goal or the desired outcome that you wanted. But the thing is, there was value that was gained, and I think people take that for granted, that you didn't get what you wanted, but something did happen, and you did get something from the experience, and you just have to be able to recognize what that is.
There's also what you said earlier, which is the fact that you can do this job and then go into any other job and pick it up.
Yes.
And I think that part of it is because of the work ethic that comes along with having to do this on your own. So you can apply that to any number of trades fairly quickly.
Well, I agree. I think you can do it.
Like you have a skill right there that can be transferred.
Right. You're able to adapt.
Audrey's doing it now.
Right.
Audrey's doing it now. You're doing it now. I did it in my early career. It was that you can go ahead and say, I was recording up for my other podcast, for the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. I was recording that today with Sarah Dici as my guest, and that has to be edited and whatnot. But like we were talking about it, and when she started, she was shooting commercials and things for brands, like not brand deals. She was actually just a content producer, a content creator for companies. There's no reason that while you're trying to do your thing as a content creator, that you can't parlay that skill into working for other brands. My friend Kayla, Panko Bunny, she was doing confections and treats and culinary stuff and for other brands and other YouTube channels, and making a salary and making six figures off of doing other people's content. She wasn't making six figures on her own YouTube channel. Her stuff was a reel that allowed her to get to do stuff for bigger people. They were like, we have this big old audience, but we need the level of content that you make. And that was something she was able to do. So like you can take your skills to the market as a creator, either in a B2B where you're a service provider, or in a direct-to-consumer model where you're doing something for whoever wants to hire you, or you're making products, or you're doing stuff. Like, people think they have to make it on YouTube and become famous and get brand deals and get AdSense, but most of us never start that way. Most of us start by taking our skills as videographers, video editors, photographers, designers, audio engineers, whatever, and we give that skill, if not to a company, then to clients or to other brands, and or even to other creators. And we make our money that way until we make money off of our own brand. And so if you're talking about plan B, what I tell people is, I had a creator come to me because her YouTube channel got hacked. And she thought she might lose everything. And the hackers were already taking her money. They'd already made like $30,000 off of her over 2 months because Google was taking forever because they redirected the AdSense to their account in Egypt or whatever. And she was like, well, I have my degree to fall back on. I was like, homie, you have worked with 12 of the biggest brands in beauty and fashion. You have a Rolodex of multiple content creators with between 100,000 and 5 million subscribers, and you know almost everyone in this industry. Yeah, everyone in this industry. So you got a massive contact list, you got a massive network, and you've worked with 12 of the biggest brands. She's like, actually, like maybe 20 of the biggest brands. I was like, okay, there you go. You can walk into any of those beauty and makeup brands and take a job as a marketing manager, and I will help you negotiate a starting salary as the head of influencer marketing for about $105,000, $110,000 a year starting salary with this brand, or this brand. And that's just probationary until you prove results. And then we're going to talk about you getting a raise in like a few months and getting more because of what you can deliver on them. Or you can walk into those brands and get about $85,000 a year just to manage and do community management of their social media, because you'd be that good at it, because you produce better results, better numbers, better content than these Fortune 500 brands. And they know that because their YouTube channels are not getting the views that yours does. It has success because they are a global Fortune 500 company brand, and they can't even pull the views that you can. You could just take over their channels and they would pay you. There's like,
I mean, that's the reason why they do
now
sponsored content. Yeah, it's because they want the views.
So like whatever they're handing you in sponsored bags could be your monthly salary at that point. I'm like, I was explaining this to her, it's like, and that would be, I'm like, and that would be them getting a steal. Like that would be them. And then you could do the job you were a content creator. You probably could be a better influencer marketing manager than the current person because you were actually a content creator.
So I want to get Audrey's perspective on this because she's kind of starting on this journey, and she's a 2-time college dropout. So if anybody can talk about plan Bs,
God,
tell us, Audrey, what do you think about Matt's question?
I mean, I think it's scary, like especially when you're getting started, because
you think it's scary to not have a plan B?
Yeah, because like everyone tells you to have a plan Z, right? Which is completely understandable. But like I've been doing some job searching, and you know, I've been trying to find new clients and stuff, just seeing what's out there. And like I found so many job things online where it's like video editor or assistant video editor, that don't require degrees, that just want a portfolio and to prove that you have like 4 years of experience. And so I see those things and like, well, I could apply to these if I, want to, which I might. I don't know. I'm still figuring that out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a great thing because I'm using the skills that I learned. I think having like a technical skill is incredibly valuable. And if
But you
have,
need
like,
that to be a creator anyway.
Yeah. So like for me, like with editing, I know that I can do an editing job just as good as anyone with a degree.
Probably better.
Because I've just spent so much time doing it. So it's just a matter of finding the job that like fits best. So I don't think having like a degree is more like a safety net in case everything hits the fan, which, Corona and stuff has proved that can happen. But
yeah, but look how many people with degrees are jobless right now.
I know, exactly. Like I think having a technical skill and you can prove that you're really good at it, and it's something that's more niche and like complicated and not something you can learn overnight. Like
I can't pass the inflated cost of a degree onto my customers and to my consumers and to my clients. And so like people's expectations of making more money because they have a degree is no. A lot of people who get degrees, number one, don't come from working class family. Like there's a balance between the people who get degrees who came from working class families versus middle or middle upper class or upper class families. First of all, only according to latest statistics, about 30% of people in America actually go to college, and then only 50% of those, 60% of those actually finish and complete college with a degree. And then the far minority of those people ever work in the industry and field of their degree. I think that the statistics bear out by that measurement that degrees are worthless. The inflated, well, people with degrees make this much money is just marketing. I'm a marketing and advertising guy, so I'll tell you how the scam works. The scam works like this.
Oh God,
they don't. For one thing, when they talk about job placement from their school, they're including everybody who's working as a barista to pay off their student loans and working as a bartender to pay off their student loans. So that's part of the scam. Because they didn't lie when they say that, X amount of our graduates are employed. So they're not giving you how many people are working in their field of study. They're not doing that. And then on top of that, when they use these averages of, well, here's how much the average amount of people make if they have a degree versus not having a degree. What they don't exclude from that is people who came from wealthy families or went into a family business or were so on and so forth, came with a pedigree. If they exclude that and they just say, we'll just only measure the number of people who make more, like the amount of money that people make who came to our school who had to apply for financial aid, that would be more relevant to the average person. That would be more relevant if they said, here's the overall number, but here is the subgroup that you belong to, the people who applied for financial aid, or the people who reported a family income when they applied to school under this amount, this amount, this amount. So you can say, here's how people like me turn out when they graduate from this school, because they are inflating the numbers by virtue of the very few people at the tippy top. And that that skews the entire range. Primary example is the average credit score gets really low the younger somebody is. The average credit score among Americans gets significantly lower the younger someone is, and it gets significantly higher the older people are, because it's weighted in their favor. So you have to know how to measure data when people give you marketing statistics to say, why we should go with your school or do this. You'd have to know how to measure those things, and you'd have to know, like me, how numbers are used to tell stories. And so I know what, like, you know why? I mean, this isn't meant to be an anti-college rant. I know it's a scam because they spent 15, 20 years delegitimizing online learning and webinars and things like Zoom. And now that we have COVID and Corona, they're saying, oh, no, our overpriced college is worth the exact same amount, even though you can't attend here in person, and you have to be on a Zoom call with somebody who can't even conduct a Zoom call as good as the free webinars that are out there. So yeah, it's a effing scam. Like, sorry. So no, I don't think degrees are even a good plan B. Here's what I believe in, and I think it's the thing that you don't even know that you're doing, Audrey, is that you have a plan A like subsection 5. Like you have a plan A subsection 5. And it's that if you want to be a creator, don't romanticize making money with YouTube or TikTok or this thing or the brand deals or whatever. Just tell yourself that you want to make money using your creative abilities and your skills, and that you don't really care how you make the money as long as you're doing it as a creator, as somebody with artistic or creative and technical ability and skill. So I wouldn't care as much if I would still be able to say, well, I create for a living if I were a photographer, a filmmaker, a YouTuber, a writer, an artist. I'm still a creative entrepreneur, regardless of which means by which I make the majority of my income, as long as it's in a creative endeavor and in a creative space. So I think that people are romanticizing being a creator or substituting creator with the word performer or influencer or public figure, instead of looking at their creative discipline and skills and abilities and how they monetize their abilities.
Still scary though.
I'm not saying it's not, but I think, you know what's not scary? You know what's not scary? Punching a clock isn't scary.
True.
You want to be safe? You want to be safe? 9 to 5 jobs will always be there if you want to be safe.
That actually brings me to the next question that I wanted to point out here, and I think is a good question to end the episode with, which is Swanfer would like to know.
God.
So, what is the easiest job? Since
People are conflating the word easy.
hardest.
You know when people say that, like, oh, you don't have a hard job because we said at home, what they're saying is you don't have a physically demanding job, which I would disagree with, because they've never done it, so they don't know what it, like. Is it more physically demanding than digging ditches, working over a grill, working at a hospital? No, it's not more physically demanding than that. It's different. I would say that is more mentally and emotionally taxing in if you're doing it full time. If you're doing it full time, it's more mentally draining and emotionally taxing, and that's what being an artist is. Being an artist is that. But in terms of physically taxing, it depends on what form it takes. Because if you work as a videographer and you do big projects and you do stuff, then that's physically taxing. Or if you do the type of content Mr. Beast does, that's physically taxing. Like they do these long shoot days, they do a full production. So it depends. So I think people are looking for, well, what's easy in terms of what's physically taxing, or they're looking at barrier to entry. Barrier to entry to be a content creator, no barrier to entry. To be a successful content creator, high barrier to entry. So what's the easiest job there is?
TikTok dancer.
Audrey.
I mean,
No.
I mean, some of them, man. I don't know. I can't judge. I don't know the full deal, but
Easiest job
Have
there is
you
is
ever
sales.
tried it?
no.
All right, so you can't.
I specifically said dancer. Sorry.
Easiest job there is sales.
See, I don't think it is. Because you have to know there's like a
Value to effort,
psychology
dollar
aspect.
for
There's
hour,
no
it's sales.
easy job.
There's no easy job, but if we're gonna do measurements and everything
Okay,
like that,
but he didn't say. Okay, I think he just wants to know which is the easiest. You know, out of all the jobs, which one's the easiest?
again, if I'm looking value per hour, because remember what we talked about? Okay, do I stream on Twitch for 8 hours for $250,000 a year, or do I flip burgers for $250,000 a year? Like, value to dollar for earning potential, money to earning potential, barrier to entry, required skills, longevity, sales. Think about it. Once you learn sales, you don't necessarily have to learn any other thing technical in nature once you're good at sales. Once you're good at sales, you've learned human behavior, how to read people, the gift of gab, or you've learned your sales system, whatever it is, whether it's real estate or something else. Once you know that thing, and sales doesn't really change. Sales doesn't evolve. It is literally as old as like it gets. It's like, and it's pretty damn straightforward. Once you know how to sell, you know how to sell. So if you're successful at sales, you will probably always be successful at sales. There's no goalpost that moves in terms of your ability or required ability, just your access. So in terms of earning potential, barrier to entry, anything that could be discriminatory, anything that like, and sales is emotional intelligence, so you don't even have to be a genius.
And I
Yeah.
feel like being a food tester would be pretty good. Actually,
No,
it's probably a lot
that's
that goes
technical.
into that.
That's technical.
I would say if you can learn a trade, like getting your license doing something. I mean, even if you're doing, what's it called, hairstyling, like if you get your license to cut people's hairs, it could be easy. No, it's only an art if you are in Beverly Hills and charging $250 for a cut.
I take that as an insult to all the
with that though, in many cases though, with that though, like I agree that the trades are underestimated. The trades are underestimated, but you have to do a significant investment into the tools of your trade.
Okay, yes, that is true, but once you get into it, it can be relatively easy. But I think that there's too many variables in this question because Juanfer didn't really say what his definition of east is.
I know, but I've been thinking about it forever. And the thing that I was able to come up with is but think about it, Romina, like how much money does it cost to become good at sales if you really think about it?
Your soul.
It's your soul.
Well,
wait, before we wrap this up, there's Matt B gave some great advice in the chat. And this is specifically for Audrey. Life is built upon risk. Take advantage of your youth and shoot for the stars. The consequences for any missteps you may make in your youth pale in comparison as you get older. Take the risk! !
I wish Matt had given me the advice when I was Audrey's age.
Yeah, me too.
That was wholesome.
All right, I think we got to start wrapping this up, guys. You don't want to be another 20 minutes here. We got stuff to do.
Yeah, no kidding. Just kidding. I have to edit a day in my life after this. I'll put it out tomorrow because I think I've missed my upload window.
All right, you ready, Roberto?
Wait, what's that?
I'm making a video reel.
Wait, you're
she's making a reel. She's making a reel.
It's a temporary reel because I have some cool videos coming up and I know I'm gonna have to redo it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Romina, what are you working on?
I will tell you once we end.
Okay. I guess.
Because I really do have to go. I have to finish.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. My final thoughts on this whole thing and topic is I think that the real crux of why I really like this topic is that we explored a lot of things. And I think one of the things we explored is that it's easy to judge things from the outside without understanding the details. And I understand why people think that being a content creator is a privileged position in comparison to where they are at. But I think that their view of it would dramatically change the minute that they have to do it. And I think that's true for most people. I also think that they don't respect the fact that the people they're looking at, usually the difference with content creators versus anything else is the people you're looking at started where you probably are right now, or even worse than you in some cases, which means that instead of looking at it from a position of envy, it should be looked at from a position of aspiration to maybe have that potential as well. And I feel that Audrey, you grew up in a generation that understands that and has aspired to that and has pursued that because you grew up watching people go from their bedrooms to fulfilling their dreams. And then who wouldn't want that if they saw that happen? But I think
doesn't mean people weren't still ignorant who are my age and like ask those type of questions.
Fair enough. And I think you learned how not easy it is. Even with seeing everyone's highlight reels, you realized very quickly when you started doing it, oh, not so easy after all, even though you have a talent for it. And you also realize that you realized by doing it that you can be the most talented person and still not get what other people get out of it for any number of reasons beyond your control. That like in a lot of other jobs, being good at your job actually matters in more conventional and traditional roles.
Cheers.
Being a content creator, sometimes it doesn't matter how good you are at your job. That has sometimes very little to do with your results because you're at the mercy of the market. and the market decides what it likes, regardless of how objectively good or bad something is. So when you're in a subjective situation, your entrepreneurial ventures are putting yourself at the mercy of the market. When you do a traditional venture, you are trading potential for security and stability and consistency, I would say. And so that's the trade-off. So what we have, I wouldn't say is a privileged position as much as it is one that has freedom, but that freedom isn't without consequences. And I think that the difference is that someone who might have a conventional job like I used to have, you don't have freedom. You gave up that freedom in exchange for security. And I think that that's the trade. We deal with anxiety and a lack of security in what we do in exchange for an abundance of freedom. And someone else gives up freedom and potential in exchange for security. As they say, the grass is always greener. And so I think that that's really the core of the conversation. And, just your final thoughts on that, guys?
My final thoughts are I gotta go.
Okay. Audrey?
It's getting late, man. It's 9:30.
Yeah. All right. Audrey?
I think people should just mind their own business or ask questions.
Okay, I love that one.
There's my final thoughts.
And that's where we'll end today's show. So I'll do the outro if you guys are ready.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the No Assembly Required podcast, a podcast where we talk about nothing and complain about our jobs. Thank you so much for listening to tonight's insightful episode. Please tune in again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time-ish for your trio of hosts. But before I do our, funny little outro here, please remember to leave us a review in Apple Podcast. Unfortunately, you can't leave us one in Spotify because they won't update the features and do their damn jobs. Anyway, thank you for listening. This has been your trio, starting with Ghoul Romina, two-time dropout Audrey Ember, and of course, your Dark Lord of the Internets, the Prince of Being Pretentious, Roberto Blake. Thank you for listening. No audience members were harmed in the filming of this podcast, only the feelings of my co-host. Nope.